Hey, how many of you believe that the Spirit of God is moving at Underwood Baptist? I mean, just take a look around, guys. Look how many of your friends, how many of your peers pile into this place week in and week out, all because of a work of the Spirit of God that's continued to move and sweep across your generation. It's a privilege to see, guys. It's an honor and an undeserved privilege to be a part of it each and every week, and that God would have me play some small, insignificant role in your life and steering you in a greater way with a greater passion towards Him. It's just really cool to be a part of, and I want you guys to know that you bless me and my wife beyond measure in ways I can't even put into words by your presence here and your willingness to invite us into your lives to be a part of your spiritual journey. It's just an honor, and it's a privilege, and I thank you guys so much for the blessing that you are to me and my family and my son. It's just, this is family, friend. I love y'all so much, and I'm excited for the word that God has for us. Now, are you ready for it? You ready to get back into our relationships? Let's rendezvous back in Song of Solomon once again. We're moving right along in our series. First comes love, then comes marriage, which is looking at God's design for being single, for dating, for marriage, for sex, all those things. And we started things off with focusing on a single status a few weeks ago, and we talked about the gift of singleness and God's use of that in certain individuals' lives. And then last week we talked about being single and searching and how we can develop a profile of the type of man or woman that we want to marry or that we need to be looking for. We talked about the importance of physical attraction, but even more so, finding someone of godly character. It's not just what's on the outer as much as it is what's on the inner. And we've been seeing all of this by following this couple in Song of Solomon, essentially the Bible's love story. We've watched them physically attract to one another. We've watched them assess each other's character, and now they're preparing to take the next step in the relationship process, which would be dating. So tonight we get to look at that advancement of their status as it moves from one of single to dating. So Song of Solomon, chapter 1, we're going to pick back up in verse 8. We get a glimpse of Solomon speaking to his woman here, and he says, "If you do not know, O most beautiful among women, follow in the tracks of the flock and pasture your young goats beside the shepherd's tents. I compare you, my love, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. Your cheeks are lovely with ornaments, your neck with strings of jewels." Let's talk about something I've come to label as the dating dilemma. And there's a specific reason why I've come to look at dating like this, and it's because dating can be difficult at times. Can you relate? Dating can be confusing at times, and you may ask, well, why, Trey, do you necessarily say that dating can be difficult? Why do you say dating can be confusing? Well, it's because of the various responses that you often get from people when you inquire about the relationship with someone. And maybe you've been in these kind of instances where you've had a close friend and you've seen them kind of be on the scene with somebody, and you've taken notice of the fact that they're hanging out with this guy or they've been hanging out with this girl, and you saw them out in town the other day, you saw them at the ball game, or they were coming out of the movies together, you walked into a restaurant and you saw them sitting over there next to one another sharing a meal, and it was just them at the table, and you didn't really even know anything was going on between them. And so next time you bump into them, you're like, so what's going on with you and so? Like, are y'all a thing or something? Like, is something going on there? And how many times have you run into the response of, I don't know? What do you mean you don't know? Like, y'all be hanging out together? Like, you seem to be spending a lot of time with one another? Like, you walk out of the room and get on the phone at various times of the day and nights? Like, what's the deal? Like, are y'all a thing or you're not? Well, I don't know. I don't really know if we are. It seems like dating can be extremely confusing for people at times. Like, they can't figure out their situation with the person that they're with. And I kind of want to take just a moment to share with you my favorite thing about relationships. My favorite thing about relationships is that I don't have to do them anymore. Because relationships can stink at times. This whole thing can be overwhelmingly confusing and complex and abstract all at the same time. And for whatever reason, it seems like we as a society, as a culture, have developed some difficulty with dating. Like we have some kind of complex when it comes to figuring out the level of our status with the person that we may or may not be crushing on. Dating, I want you to know, it has a point, it has a process, and it has a purpose. It's not just something that you do or that you use as a social status. People get confused about dating because they don't understand what it is and the fact that there is indeed a proper way to do it. We've become so recreational with our relationships. And I need you to understand that this is more than just having someone to hang out with. This is more than just having someone to enjoy experiences with. This is more than just having something that you can tack on to your social media and populate other people's feed with. We can't treat dating leisurely. It must be treated intentionally. Why? Because there is a purpose to this process. Let me tell y'all just one simple piece of advice. If you have no intentions of being married, then you really have no business dating. Don't waste your time and don't waste somebody else's time. Dating has a process and a purpose to it. There is an end game to this that we are to be working towards. So we need to get past this whole being leisurely and recreational with our relationships and understand that there is a purpose behind this. And so in that, God gives us the opportunity to follow this couple as they begin to date each other so that we can see how all this works and what the progression looks like. So they've attracted, they've assessed, and now Solomon is going to initiate the next step of progression, a step that we're going to call hot pursuit. So when you start getting ready to enter into the dating phase of the relationship, there has to begin a level of pursuit. So let's go back and check out what's happening again, because sometimes the verbiage in Song of Solomon gets a little weird, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, there's some weird things being said here. Remember when we left off last time, Solomon's girl has asked, where can I meet you at? And so he picks up in verse 8. He says, if you don't know, O most beautiful among women, follow in the tracks of the flock and pasture your young goats beside the shepherd's tent. I compare you, my love, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. Your cheeks are lovely with ornaments, and your neck with strings of jewels. Remember, we saw this woman, where can I meet you at? And Solomon responds in verse 8. And I love Solomon's response a little bit. Solomon's got a little bit of swag about him. Because this girl asks, where can I meet you at? And he starts off in verse 8 by saying, if you do not know. Like, really, girl? If you don't know, if you really don't know, then you can meet me over by the pastures. And he's like, you know good and well where I'm going to be at. You don't need to ask me that. You girls know good and well. You crushing on that guy. You know where he's going to be at. You know his class schedule better than he does. You know what time he's at the gym day in and day out. And so Solomon's like, if you really don't know, I'm going to be here. I was thinking, I had a thought in my office earlier, I'm going to make some t-shirts. They're going to say, swag like Solomon. Anybody interested? Maybe help some of you guys out a little bit. What we're seeing is that Solomon is the one who is now pursuing this woman. Yeah, sure, she kind of pushed the issue in the initial contact between the two of them. And like we talked about, lady, that's fine. You see a guy and he piques your interest and you want to drop a little hint out there. You want to kind of just casually stroll by him one day and make eye contact, whatever, trying to get him, that's fine. But Solomon now picks up and begins to take the lead. He is the one who has responded, and he has told her where she can meet him at. He is now the one leading and directing the progression of their relationship, not the other way around. He has taken on, fellas, sole responsibility of taking initiative and progressing the advancement of their new relationship. So listen to me, men. God created you to be the leader of the household. So it is your responsibility to take the lead in the relationship. It starts early. You practice on being the lead in your house by being the lead in the pursuit of the relationship. So you take the initiative. Don't put it on her because it's not. Now, that being said, let's explain something for a second. Just understand there's a difference between pursuing and pressuring. Just as important in knowing when to continue is knowing when to cease. We don't need anybody in here getting restraining orders filed against them because we can't take a hint. So just as important as knowing when to continue at times is knowing when to cease or when to stop. So Solomon is asking this girl out on a date. And I know this can be kind of hard to see because of the cultural difference and the wording in the text. But what he actually does in verse 9 is he drops this absolutely horrid pickup line on this girl. He says, I compare you, my love, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. So he essentially calls her a horse. He's like, man, girl, like, if I had something to compare you with, it's going to be Pharaoh's lead horse over there. Like, that horse face, that mane, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what Solomon was thinking. Apparently, they communicated affection in a different way back then. Compliments were received a little differently. He essentially calls this woman a horse. Now, fellas, I'm doing my best to help y'all out in the midst of all this. If you're wanting to attract a godly woman, by all means, flex those biblical muscles. Let her see that you know the word. But I wouldn't recommend using this verse to try and get a date with her. Comparing her to a horse might not be the best outcome for you like it was for Solomon at this time. But I do want to help you out. I know it can be hard to kind of initiate things. So I do want to help you out. I want to give you a few pickup lines that you might try instead. So I'm going to ask my wife to come up here. And we're going to give a practical demonstration for you fellas. I'm trying to help y'all out. I'm trying to do you a favor. I'm going to give you, better have your notebook out, because I'm going to give you some one-liners. You might be walking out of here with a date tonight. You're sweating. She's sweating. She's already getting a...
I said I don't know if it's from this or the steroid shot I got earlier.
We know which one it is. I just wanted you to know that I put the stud in Bible study. You like it? Maybe not. Maybe we didn't get there yet. I was wondering, is your name Ruth? Because I'd love to be your Boaz. I was reading the book of Numbers last night, and I realized I didn't have yours. Let me get them digits. You think we're getting there? Maybe we need to step it up a notch. What's up, girl? You can call me Will. God's will for your life. Oh, man, I feel like I'm getting rejected time and time again. That's okay. I know you told me no once, but you can call me Joshua, because sooner or later I'm bringing down the walls of your heart. That's all I got. That's the best I could do. So. All right, listen, on a more serious note, the mare of Pharaoh's chariots would have been the finest of all horses. So Pharaoh, in his selection for the lead of his chariot, he would have settled for nothing but the best. And even though the lead mare wasn't the only horse it stood out head and shoulders amongst the rest. So what Solomon is saying to this woman was actually a complimentary thing of her beauty. He's essentially saying to her, you may be standing in a crowd, but you're the only one that I see. You stand out head and shoulders, far and above any other woman that I've ever come in contact with. You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. Now that's a pickup line. Maybe Solomon didn't do so bad after all. So she asks where she can meet him at. He tells her, and they meet up. Solomon spits a little bit of game on her. He asks her to go out on a date, and she agrees. And in verse 11, her little girlfriends come back on the scene. I love this group of friends. They don't make a whole lot of appearances, but when they do, it always adds a little bit of spice and excitement to the story. So the girlfriends come back up on the scene. In verse 11, they say, we will make ornaments of gold studded with silver. So in other words, she goes back to her friends, and she said, guess what? Guess who asked me out on a date? Me and Solomon are hitting the town tonight. I said, yes, we're going. And they're all excited and like, oh, girl, we're going shopping. We're going to get you a new dress. We're going to get you some of the finest jewelry. Like, they are all excited for her. It's a date. It's a date. But there's one more question that we need to answer. What exactly is a date? I'm going to tell you. Here's what a date is. A date is a guy with a girl at a common event to do nothing more than enjoy each other's company. It is a casual time of hanging out and doing something fun together, and it does not escalate beyond that. That's simply all it is. It's me asking you if you want to hang, maybe go to a movie, go have a meal, let's go to the carnival, whatever, and that's it. When it's over with, we say goodbye. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we won't. It doesn't escalate any further than that. Now, I have to caution you with something here. Be very, very careful at this point of the progression, because most people mess things up and get things moving entirely too fast, entirely too quick. One thing we have to understand and keep in mind in our search for love is that love is a very, very powerful emotion. It's a very, very powerful desire. We seek and strive to find companionship. And in the midst of that, when we feel like we're on the verge of attaining that thing, we can get excited and move a little too quickly than we need to. And we instantly begin to fall into like infatuation stage, to where we go on one date and already somebody's thinking, I'm in love. After one date, we got to pump the brakes a little bit. For Solomon and his woman, they show us this is a one-time thing. But if it's something that we enjoy, then we take the next step of the progression, which is this. Let's do this again. So if we go back into the text in verse 12, we get a glimpse of Solomon's woman, and she begins to speak. And she says, while the king was on his couch, my nard gave forth its fragrance. My beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh that lies between my breasts. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms in the vineyards of En-gedi. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves. Behold, you are beautiful, my beloved, truly delightful. So what in the world? There's a lot of just weird verbiage going on here. And we're going to work through it. This couple they've been on a few dates now to get to know each other. And what I need you to understand is that this book, it gives us snapshots of the progression of their relationship. And so we don't get to see every single part of it, and it begins to progress sometimes a lot quicker than what we realize, just because of the nature of the amount of details that were given in the text. So we may move a few verses down while they've actually moved a few months in their relationship together. And so that's kind of what has happened here. They've gotten to know each other on a deeper level. They like what they're seeing. And so they have actually begun the dating process. Now, and the key difference at this point of progression is the level of consistency. A date is a one-time thing that may or may not happen again. Dating is a consistent move. Your time spent together, your time talking to each other becomes more of a consistent pattern in your life. And that's what we see happening within the context of their dating relationship with each other. So if we look at the words that are being spoken, and we go back and listen to what she is saying to and about Solomon. She says that while the king was on his couch, my nard gave forth its fragrance. My beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh that lies between my breasts. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms in the vineyards of En-Gedi. And so what I want you to notice is something very, very key and essential to good relationships, and that's this. We see this couple edifying each other. They are building each other up. This is basically them whispering those sweet nothings in each other's ear phase, right? It's like, it's real ooey gooey at this moment. And so to break down kind of what she is saying, because it's a little weird, she says that he is a sachet of myrrh that lies between my breasts. And so in those times, how ladies would wear their perfume would be to put it around a chain into a sachet, and it would sit on their chest. And that's where they would keep their good-smelling stuff. And so there's meaning behind this. We're going to get to that here in a second. But then she goes on to say about him that is a cluster of henna blossoms in En-Gedi. So these henna blossoms, they were gorgeous blossoming flowers that grew in this desert oasis known as En-Gedi. So in the midst of this desert that was actually situated along the coastland of the Dead Sea, everything around that area was desert and desolate except for this garden oasis known as En-Gedi. And in that garden would be these gorgeous henna blossoms that would bloom even in the midst of a desert surrounding. And Solomon responds back and he edifies his girl. He says, behold, you are beautiful, my love, and your eyes are like doves. What if we still talk like this? Like, it's weird because our verbiage is so much different, but like there's true affection being shown here. Now, she's saying that just by the way that he treats her. She says that he's like to me a sachet of myrrh that lies between my breasts, and a cluster of henna blossoms in En-Gedi. So she's saying that just by the way that he is treating me, he enhances my beauty. He enhances my self-confidence. He enhances my self-esteem. He enhances my morale. Essentially, this woman says, everything may be dead and desolate around me, but because of his affection and his expressions of love towards me and their edification of me, I feel like I'm in full bloom. This is what the relationship is supposed to look like. I mean, girls, if you're in a dating relationship, is this not how you would desire your man to treat you? In such a way that boosts your self-esteem, in such a way that boosts your morale, in such a way that boosts your self-confidence, in such a way that makes you feel like you are the most beautiful thing that has ever walked the face of this earth. Girls, you need to find you a man that's going to do these things for you, that's going to treat you in such a way. Guys, you need to be paying attention because this is how you need to be treating your woman. And on top of that, Solomon responds and he says, you're beautiful, my beloved. You're truly delightful. And so within the context of this relationship, we see the edification taking place. They begin to enhance one another, begin to edify one another. She responds back to him. She says that you're beautiful, truly delightful, my beloved. So she returns the favor. She edifies Solomon. She enhances his appeal. She boosts his self-confidence. She supports him. She's building his character. She doesn't tear him down. She doesn't make him feel like he's useless or worthless or anything like that. She is doing the opposite. She is building him up. You know, you can always tell when a girl is in a good relationship because she begins to glow physically from it. When she walks into the room, the entire room begins to lighten and glow up with her just because of the nature of how she is being treated within her relationship. But if the opposite is taking place, the opposite will make itself shown. When she walks in the room, she's in a relationship that is unhealthy, that is not good, that is not edifying of her, that glow begins to dissipate and she begins to be surrounded by darkness. There's a gloom and a despair and a hurt and a pain that kind of follows her around like an aura. And the same is true when a guy's in a good relationship. When a guy's in a good relationship, he will carry with him a physical confidence. Why? Because he's being built up. He's being edified. His self-confidence is boosted by the way in which his woman is treating him. But once again, the opposite happens if the relationship is unhealthy. If he feels like he's always being torn down, if he feels like he's always being questioned, if he feels like he's always being disrespected, then he's only going to mope around. He's going to lose his self-confidence. He's not going to walk into a room with his head up. He's going to walk into the room with his head down. These are the kind of relationships where you see somebody checking their phone once every 45 seconds. Why? Because there's not edification there. There's fear there. What have I done now to make the other person mad? What have I done to get on their bad side? That's not a sign of a healthy relationship. In a healthy, God-honoring relationship, the man and the woman are constantly edifying one another. They are building each other up. There should be physical edification in your dating, but there should also be spiritual edification as well. The person that you date should push you to become a better man or woman of God. Now let's do something tough. I'm not trying to cause relational friction or breakups or anything like that. But the evaluation question needs to be for those of you who are right now in relationships, is this relationship pushing me toward God or away from God? You know what I see pull people out of good spiritual health quicker than anything else? Relationships. Ones that people get into with somebody that they don't need to be in one with, that does not honor God, that does not lead to their physical education, that does not lead to their spiritual education. I have seen people walk into this place, catch fire for the things of God, and live with that fire consistently for 6, 7, 8 months, enter into a relationship, and when the matter of 2 weeks, you ain't seen them in 4 months. What changed? The person that they brought into their life. Honestly, you need to be evaluating your relationship with such scrutiny. Is this person pushing me towards God? Or as a result of this relationship and I'm being pulled from him? Which one do you want to prioritize? Because I can tell you right now, there are those out there that you can find to spend the duration of your life with, that day in and day out will help lead you in your pursuit to Christ. That's what you should desire. If things to continue to progress even further, and they begin to take another step. And so we're dating. They're starting to feel each other a little bit. They say, we've enjoyed this time together. I pursued, and she said yes. Things are going well. We want to get a little bit deeper. And so they decide we're going to do this again. It becomes more of a consistent thing in their life. And then things progress to the I'm in love phase. And we see this, we pick back up in verse 16. She says, behold, you are beautiful, my beloved, truly delightful. She says, our couch is green. That's awesome. They got a green couch, apparently. The beams of our house are cedar. Our rafters are pine. I'm a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. As a lily among brambles, so is my love among the young women. As an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. With great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. At this point, all you need to know is it's getting serious. You begin to think about the possibility of marriage at this point. So the further things begin to progress in your dating relationship, eventually there comes a time where we begin to entertain the possibility of joining our lives in covenant relationship with one another. You become open about your relationship out in public at this phase. And we see this with this couple. I know it sounds weird, like she's talking about their couch being green and all that stuff. So a little bit of poetic interpretation for you, what this does is it gives us a picture that they're outside. So in other words, they're in the outdoors. They're out in public. They're open. They're in view of the public eye. Like they're not behind closed doors. They're not trying to be secretive about their status or the extent of their relationship to one another. They aren't ashamed of the publicity of it, in other words. They are exclusively public, and they're not trying to hide anything about it. They're out in the open, and people are beginning to take notice that obviously this man and this woman are in a very, very, very exclusive and deep dating relationship. They're making it known to other people around. Listen, don't tell me that you're dating if you hardly act like you know each other in public. I don't hear it. Don't tell me that you're in some kind of dating relationship if you act like you hardly know each other in public. Now, I'm not saying that this has to become a PDA fest. Like, by all means, I'm not advocating that you, like, go make out in the corner of the room or something like that to let everybody know that we're in a relationship with one another. But I am saying that at some point, it has to become obvious in your dating relationship that you're exclusive with this person that you know. How many of you are familiar with the movie Elf? Buddy the Elf gives us the premier example of this. Buddy finds someone and he falls in love. He busts into his dad's office that day. You remember what he says? He takes his hat off and he says what? I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it. At some point in time, you have to get to this point in your relationship. It's got to be out in the open. We can't be concealing it. We can't be hiding it. You got to let other people know you are no longer available. And that's what this couple does for one another. Man, there's a deep love being fostered within their relationship. He protects his woman, and he nourishes his woman. Look at what he says in verse 3. Or she's saying this about how Solomon treats her. She says that, as an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. With great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. What's she saying? She's saying that he treats me. An apple tree. You ever seen an apple tree? It has these huge, massive, overarching branches. And so she says, underneath him, while I'm with my man, I feel like nothing can get to me. I feel like nobody can hurt me. I feel completely safe with him. And on top of that, what else would you find amongst the apple tree? You're going to find apples. She says, he nourishes me. So within him, I feel protected, but I also feel provided for. This is how, guys, you should be making your woman feel. Ladies, this is how your man should be treating you in such a way where underneath him and while you're in his presence, he makes you feel comfortable. He makes you feel protected. He makes you feel nourished for. And on top of that, he says that he shows that he unashamedly claims possession of this woman. I love this part. She says that he brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. In those days when they went out into battle, the commanders and the sergeants would carry with them this massive banner out into the battlefield. And this banner was like huge. And the whole purpose of it was so that in the heat of battle, when everything else was going on and there was complete chaos taking place, they would hold this banner up so that their company could see at all times where their head command was within the context of the battle. It wasn't something that they had to look hard to see. It wasn't something that was inordinately hard to pick out. It was obvious. You could see it from miles away. And so this woman says, my man, he brought me to his house, and his banner over me was love. In other words, she's saying of him, he's made it known to everybody that I'm his. There's no questioning the matter. I'm not unsure of how he feels. Nobody else is unsure of how he feels. I'm not unsure, or I'm not doubting his commitment. I know exactly how he feels about me and the level of his commitment towards me. And then on top of that, it would have been a declaration to everybody else around that she's mine, back off. My girl. How many of you ladies want to find a Solomon for your life? He said, that's my girl. My girl, back off. To every single one of you men in here tonight, that's my girl. You want to try it? You just let me know. I'd be happy to show you a good time. That's Solomon's mentality with his woman. He said, I found this woman I'm deeply in love with, and ain't nobody going to mess with that. You're not going to come up here and take her away from me, and I'm not going to give you the opportunity to. As a matter of fact, I'm going to love her so well, she ain't even going to desire to see anybody else. It's the kind of man, guys, that you need to be over the woman that you found to give your love to. Listen to me, ladies. If he's in love with you, you can expect all these things to be evident. And if they're not existing, well, then I would highly question the depth of his affection and his commitment to you. As sooner or later, these things have to get serious. And love has to become obvious. I mean, love. And then there's one last progression, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the one that we just taught. And it's this, that they begin to crave one another. But in their craving, they're controlling. So we get back into the text. Things begin to take like a wild turn all at once. Listen to what she says. She says, sustain me with raisins. Refresh me with apples. I mean, this girl wants a fruit basket or something like, for I'm sick with love. His left hand is under my head and his right hand embraces me. And she says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Now, let's understand some context. In those times, raisins, apples, any kind of fruit that was high in seed concentration, they thought was beneficial for fertility. And not only that, they considered it to be an aphrodisiac. In other words, they thought these kind of fruits would enhance your sexual ability, in other words. And so this woman, she's feeling her man a little bit. She's like, I want some raisins. I want some apples. She's expressing a sexual desire for her man. She's like, man, this guy, he has got me head over heels. Like I'm ready to give all of myself to him. She is desiring her man, and his embrace shows that he desires her as well. So look at this. She says that his left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. Is it getting a little awkward yet? We have a position of intimacy. But listen, they are not being intimate yet. I want you to notice something if you haven't yet. At no other point in time have we yet to even see this couple touch one another. Look how far they have gotten into their relationship before any physical contact takes place. It's pretty impressive. But now that they're in love, now that they've been dating, they've got to know it, they spend a lot of time with each other, they're craving each other. Everything inside of them wants to jump in bed and, for lack of a better word, just let it all go. Listen, I know this stuff was in the Bible. It's getting weird. I don't know if I want to come back to this church again or not. I get it. I do. Trust me. I'm not trying to act like I ain't never been there before. I've dated. I've been in relationships. I know what physical desires are. I know how badly those things begin to well up inside of you, the things that you want to do with one another and for one another or whatever. You think it's bad when you're dating? Try getting engaged. Once you get engaged, and it's like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like the closer you get to the very, you're just like, golly, I can't handle it anymore. They're wanting one another. Please listen to me. Sexual desires are good. They are God-given desires. And these two people are experiencing those desires. But listen to what she says. She says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. She's saying, I want this so bad. And I know he wants it too. But I have to plead with you. Now is not the time. They're craving, but they're controlling. These desires, they're good. But the context for which they are to be expressed and fulfilled, we haven't gotten there yet. Listen, all sexual activity is reserved underneath the covenant union of marriage. That's it. God does not express any kind of permissible okay on any form of sexual activity outside of marriage. That's his design. That's his context. So she says, now's not the time. Even though we're feeling it, we've got to control it. Now, I want to tack something on very, very important here. I want to speak to you guys just for a moment. You men, we are very, very physically driven people. Here's my challenge to you. This is not even a challenge, it's an imperative. You have got to take the lead in this. This is so serious. You've got desires. She's got desires. But you have got to be the one that says, I know that you're feeling this. I know that I'm feeling this. But now's not the time. We're not going there. We're not compromising that. And listen to me, if you have already in the context of your relationship, stop now. Stop now. And guys, you've got to take the lead. She's going to follow. If you want her to follow your lead and everything else, if God expects you to lead in every other area, he expects you to lead in your physical self-control as well. Please, men, please, please, please ask God to give you an enhanced self-discipline and control to keep your desires submitted to God-honoring places. These desires are good, but they must be controlled, and they have to be controlled, and they can be controlled, because this isn't the season just yet for them to be acted upon. Got it? So guys, if you find a godly girl that likes you and the feeling is mutual, then by all means, go after her. You take the pursuit into your hands. Ask her out on a date. Y'all go get to know each other. If you like what you're seeing, then take it deeper. Start dating one another. If you start falling for each other, then just own it. It's part of the natural process and progression. Just make sure that in the midst of that, you keep your cravings under control. Then you can start making preparations to take the next step in your relationship. But you'll have to come back next week to figure out what that is.